Okay, we're ready.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Audra and Forrest. Welcome everyone to the special board meeting for Monday, May, seems like March, I don't know. May 18th. I think I sent out a message, was kind of, hopefully we won't have as many technical difficulties. And I think Aaron has an update on kind of some procedures, but I'll probably, once we get, after we approve the agenda and move into the presentation, try to limit video just to save on bandwidth. Anyway, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second,
Was that Drew or was that Justin?
Drew.
All right, Karen moved, Drew seconded to approve the agenda. Karen,
Aye.
Drew,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Stephanie,
Aye.
Kaya,
Aye.
Justin,
Aye.
and I myself. All right, I will turn this over now to Aaron and the folks at DLR and McCown Gordon.
All right, good evening, everyone. We are excited to share tonight the progress on the Tonganoxie High School bond project. We have a design development update that we're going to go through with you, and hope you guys are really impressed with all the progress that's been made and the images that you've seen, and we'll see some new ones tonight. So here's our agenda for this evening. We're going to kind of go through some overview, and then DLR will walk through the actual design development portion, and then we'll get into some budget and schedule discussions with McCown. So as Jim alluded to, I think we're going to try, if you are not speaking tonight, or when you are not speaking, if we'll keep the video turned off to try and help with technology issues. And if you have issues, to log in with your call in on the phone, and try and stay muted when listening in. If you have comments, we are going to try to hold comments till the end of the presentation, because hopefully our goal is to get through and then hopefully address most of the comments throughout the presentation. If you do have something that you want to send through in the chat function, I will try and keep an eye on that and jump in to the presentation if we need to, or write it down to address at the end. So with that, we'll jump right in here. So just expectations for tonight's presentation. We met back in February to present the schematic design progress for the project. So tonight is very similar to that, except it's the design development, which is just taking that schematic design to the next stage. So where we're going after design development, we are starting into the construction document phase of the project, which will get into very specific details and specifications of materials. So where are we at with the design development phase? What you can expect to see in these drawings and budgeting is the site plans with more detailed grading and landscape details, detailed architectural space layouts, and interior and exterior elevations of rooms and the exteriors of the building. You will see some preliminary room finish schedules indicating what finishes are for which spaces, and overall preliminary color selections for the interior and exterior of the building. We are not going to show in great detail tonight, but we'll discuss a little bit of mechanical, electrical, and plumbing finish schedules, what type of equipment is included in the project at this stage. Then we'll also be talking about further refined budget, which aligns with the specific materials that have been selected so far, as well as what you will see has actually been developed to go into each individual space. So as an overview, just wanted to kind of make a comment that I think this team has done a really great job dealing with kind of an unprecedented situation of gathering all of this information and progressing the design and the budget virtually for most of our design development, or about half of the design development. So I felt like everybody really kept on task and worked through some adjustments in our work life to get this together. So I want to commend everybody for that. So the good news is that we'll be presenting a project that is tracking on budget, and we'll explain some adjustments in the scope, both up and down, and that we are meeting all the bond issue goals of this project. So really at the end of the evening, we'll be asking for the Board of Education's acceptance of the overall design development progress and budget, so that we can continue to proceed forward with construction documents. So this slide is a summary of the bullet points from the bond issue. So just wanted to hit on, as we said, making sure that we are designing to and meeting all of the criteria for the bond project. So we'll talk through these. DLR will hit on these during their presentation, but we're focused on safety and security enhancements, new classrooms and educational communities, new consolidated kitchen and cafeteria, the competition gym and support spaces for improved physical education, West Campus renovations for district support, code required updates to existing gymnasium. We'll address this a little bit, but as DLR has dug into that design, they have discovered that the previous improvements done meet all the required codes there. And parking lot improvements, traffic flow around the site has been very much focused on during the process, and the demolition of the 1960s building and district office. So with that, we'll turn it over to DLR to go through their design presentation.
Okay, great. Hi, this is Robin with DLR Group, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we started out our design development phase. We sent out questionnaires to teachers and staff to ask them about their needs for their new spaces. The questionnaires indicated that the teachers' needs for equipment and furniture and casework, and overall they got to tell us about their wants for their new spaces. Our next step was to actually meet with the teachers in person. And so the design team took 2 days in the early part of, or late part of February, early part of March. We met with staff and teachers at the high school. And then from there, we discussed the general layout of their rooms, as well as we got into some specific needs for their classrooms. And so we took all of that really great information that we got from the questionnaires and the in-person meetings, and we started to put those on our plans. So we did have to do a second round of meetings with a select group of teachers for some of those spaces that really required a lot of attention, a lot of like plumbing and casework modifications like art or science or facts. And this is when sort of the COVID-19 issues hit, and with all the restrictions. So we did those meetings via Zoom. And so Mark Farrar was very instrumental in helping us set all those meetings up with those teachers. So we appreciate that. So really a lot of time and effort was spent on documenting all of this information for the teaching and learning spaces. So with that, we're going to start with the site plans.
Thanks, Robin. This is Josh Earhart, DLR Group. If you recall, a couple of months ago when we were going through the schematic design process, Our overarching goal with the site development was really safety and security, and as Aaron mentioned, improving that site circulation. During the pre-bond phase, we understood that we had some existing constraints with Highway 24 to the north of us, and the existing ball fields and West Campus to the west of us, a floodplain to the south of us, the football field, practice field, and Main Street to the east. So we were really kind of tied into here. Plus, we were adding a substantial amount of buildings. So we're looking at, well, what does safety mean and how do we improve it? And one of our main goals always with a site like this is separating bus and staff from students and trying to streamline that as much as possible. So if you recall back in the schematic phase, we were able to separate the two and identify where the car drop off versus the bus drop off was, where staff could park and where students could park. And then we were also tasked while doing all this to hit the existing student parking count and staff count. We were able to do so in schematic design. And if you go on to the design development, we were tasked to add another layer onto that. And so what we did was we added an additional 50 plus stalls to the student parking lot to make sure there's an ample amount of parking over there. And we developed this, you could say a campus drive, if you will, pulled off to the parking on the east side of the site. The goal of this was to draw the traffic off of State Avenue or Highway 24 and Main Street a little bit quicker, so we can kind of avoid that backup, that backup on State Avenue in particular that a lot of the board was concerned with. KDOT isn't very flexible with moving these curb cuts, so this was our way of trying to improve that site circulation. So we were able to achieve that, increase the student parking count to about 1 stall for every 1.7 students, which that's good. A lot of times we go for 1 stall for every 2 students. So we're doing better than that mark. If we want to go to the next slide, we can kind of speak a little bit more specific about some other enhancements here. The entry plaza to the north, you'll see a rendering there, but we started identifying some of these seat wall elements and flagpoles and paved decorative concrete areas, as well as the outdoor commons plaza area. You also see a rendering of that as well. One of the additions we did make since SD is the addition of a 3-foot tall loading dock, pretty much centered of the rendering right there, right next to the dumpster. That means the road or the drive right there will drop 3 feet in elevation. So when you have a box truck or any sort of delivery vehicle there, they can unload new goods and supplies at a level and safe area. Everything else is pretty much the same since the last SD. If we want to go to the east side, this is where you'll see that addition of that campus road on the outer side. So this allows students to enter the site a little bit more freely without having to bottleneck at the entrances there. So really helps clean up the area. And again, we started to identify, bike parking and the automatic gates to the secured service yard area. And then how we are also maintaining the existing memorial space just north of the school. And with that, we can go on to the next slide and we can talk a little numbers here. The existing stall count you can see is about 419 stalls. We up 484 stalls. And then the future capacity of the high school, they're saying about 800. We also took on the task of identifying where we could locate approximately 200 stalls. We could fit this nicely either on the west side of campus or on the east side of campus, depending on how everything plays out in the future. And that would bring our parking count for 1 stall for every 1.5 students. So that even improves it even more. So we really think that we're coming up with a great solution here that's really improving the parking situation as we move on into the future. And that's all I have for the site. Thank you.
Okay. So this is Robin again, and we'll move on and talk about the existing building real quick. So we are going to be demolishing the existing building that's shown here in red. And as you know, here in a couple weeks, the church and the district office will be demolished. So the colored portions of the areas around the TPAC show where we will be doing upgrades to flooring and paint. And we will also do some minor modifications to the west stair to meet up with our new addition. And this is also where I wanted to point out that in the 2005 work that was done, there was a stair that was added to out in the lobby in front of the existing gymnasium, and this gets us the correct exiting for out of the mezzanine of the existing gym space. So that was the code reference that Aaron was talking about earlier. If we want to go to the next slide, this is the overall floor plan showing the additions to the east and to the west of the existing building. The East Gymnasium addition is about 36,200 square feet. The West addition is over 90,000 square feet. So really not a lot has changed from the layouts that we showed you at schematic design. The only thing that's really changed is our level of development in detail. So our plans show a lot more as far as casework and storage, possible furniture layouts and things like that. So I also wanted to point out that we've had some security meetings with Lauren and Mark to talk about how to zone the building in an emergency. We also talked about locations of card readers for access control and security camera placement for the overall building complex when it's complete. I also wanted to make mention that the HVAC systems will be rooftop package units. Classrooms will be provided with individual temperature controls. And then train equipment is the basis of design, but other vendors will be allowed to bid the equipment. So this slide is actually showing the enlarged plan of the East Gym Addition, which shows the new lobby, the 2,300 seat gym, and then the adjoining locker room spaces. This addition also has the new choir room space shown in the purple. And then the axonometric view shows you how the gym bleachers will look. And then later in the presentation, we can show you our ideas for the lobby space. So the next slide shows the West Addition, which is the new main entrance and with the administration in the red. There's a long lobby that connects the two-story academic wing to the new cafeteria and food service area. The cafeteria is designed to seat 200 kids in 4 lunch periods. And then in the academic wing, this first level shows a centralized media center in the orange. And there's electives along either side with special education and art. And then the core classrooms are located at the west end. They're in the blue, and they are all connected to an open learning lab space. And then the axonometric gives you kind of a better idea of what the layout looks like with possible furniture arrangements. And then that red in the middle there is a learning stair that we'll go over in greater detail in a little bit. So the second floor academic wing matches the first with the core classrooms at the west end. So those stack directly on top of each other. Again, we have science electives around the outside and more specialized classrooms in the middle. The media center is a 2-story space. And so when you're on the second level, you can look down into the media center space as well as over into the entry. And so we are showing a lot of glazing and a lot of transparency. You can see that in the axonometric view. But we intend to use some frosted glass in key locations along the railings and the stairs just to minimize some of those views. So we're going to move on to West Campus. We've had a lot more development on West Campus during design development. So this space is going to be designated as the new space for, of course, the district administration. There will be some slight demolition work to upgrade the existing toilet rooms to meet ADA. But most of the renovation work is cosmetic with new flooring, paint, and ceilings, as you can see in some of these highlighted areas. And then the next slide shows how the space is designated between the district, which is in blue. Whoops. And then the city rec department in the olive green color. So Lauren and Tanya and Forrest will office out of West Campus. And this is also where your new boardroom will be. And there's a large space for staff development meetings and a space for wrestling practice over on the right side. So there will be plenty of space for the district to use for storage, as well as for growth for future learning opportunities. And so with that, we're going to move on to the really fun stuff and talk about the exterior and interior rendering.
Okay, thanks, Robin. This is Craig Serig with DLR Group. We've continued to develop the renderings that we reviewed all along throughout schematic design and even with the Tongri Strong meeting. You'll see the red cone on the site plan. That indicates the view that we're looking at. So this is looking toward the main entrance. So you can see the site elements that Josh was talking about earlier and how those have come in to be developed within the 3D rendering as well. The same materials, those haven't changed since our last meeting. We're using the blonde or buff colored brick that matches your existing concrete block that you have now. And then the red brick will be the exact match to the brick you have now on this end of the building. And then we've got some metal panel and some interlocking metal panel soffits for the canopy, and then painted steel columns out front that have a little ornamentation to them and will be up on a plinth to protect them from weather and maintenance as well. And then storefront and high performance glazing for the balance of the clerestories, the entrances, and the windows into the admin area. Okay, next slide. And then this, the cone again, showing you we're going to be looking at the athletic commons entrance now. So an evening shot here, give you an idea, you know, what it would look like, you know, arriving for a game. Get the internally lit commons area kind of as the beacon, you know, calling you into that space, clear identification of entrance. Again, using the same canopy materials, storefront glazing, and treatment of the columns. The columns then become this organizing element that tie all of the three entrances together, from the admin down to performing arts, and then at the athletic commons entrance as well. And then the gymnasium over on the left-hand side is your red brick, and then a little bit darker metal panel for the upper portion of that facade, and that wraps around the entire gymnasium itself. Okay, and then the last view would be of the outdoor commons plaza area. So this is, you know, looking from the west in between the cafeteria commons on the right-hand side, the education wing on the left-hand side. The larger glazed opening is that two-story, the stair that connects the first level and second level. Again, the same palette with the lighter brick and the red brick. And then we have another metal panel that'll just be used on the education wing and over in some of the elements of the cafeteria as well. It just has a little bit deeper reveal and creates more interest with the shadow lines that are created by that material. And then again, just can you back up just for a second? Yeah, just to call out, we've got entrance doors from both the art rooms that go out into the enclosed courtyard, doors from the main commons right beside the Tongi store, and then doors that will come out from the cafeteria itself. Okay. And again, these are the materials that are called out on the elevations, and we've talked about those. So I think we're ready for our interiors renderings. Tammy, you're on.
Tammy there?
You're on mute. There.
Okay, this is Tammy with the DLR Group. Sorry, I was muted in 2 different places. We're going to jump right in and start looking at, the first look is at the main entry lobby. To the left, we have the admin, and to the right is the media center. Straight in the back is the seating steps, the back of the seating steps, and straight forward is you're going into the student commons. The entry lobby is more neutral finishes with splashes of red. Next. The next view we'll be looking at is the kind of the seating stairs. Here we have like red rubber tile and rubber tile and treads with the wood seat caps. The glass rail, as Robin mentioned earlier, is with a lightly frosted glass. And as you can see with the room above that overlooks this, that frosted glass at the bottom panel of those stairs, or excuse me, of the student research studio above. We've added Tongi or Tonganoxie spirit elements throughout with the T on the logo of the stairs. Next, we're looking at a view of the commons. This shows the servery on the right. The courtyard is straight ahead. And then on the right, we have a graphic word wall covering that we will personalize to Tonganoxie's keywords, phrases, and school spirit. Just gives you an idea of words that could be used. Next, we have the learning lab, one of the learning labs. This view faces the center core of the learning lab. In this view, we show multiple areas to collaborate. To the left, we look into the makerspace lab, and to the right, there is like a dry erase wall covering that wraps around the core. And we also are using like acoustical colored baffles to define this area on each of the floors. Now we're going to look into the athletic lobby. Here to the left, we have the entrance to the gym and some display cases. Straight ahead is the concessions that are wrapped in red panels. And to the right, we have a tone-on-tone painted wall graphic that says Tonganoxie Chieftains. We show tall tables and chairs or seating for concessions or events. Next, we'll show a view inside the gym. Here we have white walls with bands of red Tectum acoustical wall panels and painted red stripes. And we've shown the Tonganoxie spirit painted on the walls with the chieftains and the T logo. The ceiling will be a medium, kind of a medium gray. And then this finish page, these kind of represent some of the finishes used throughout. We have the main entry lobby shown, and then on the left side, we show some media center finishes and the coffee shop and student store proposed finishes. So just some examples.
All right, so we're going to go into the
We
budget.
can't hear you. Unmute your screen.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. Sorry about that. Just had the same problems Tammy did. Yeah, I'm going to take a minute to talk about budget. I really wish I could have seen everybody's faces react to those images, though. Those are coming along really well. You can skip past this. The next slide is just a reminder of where we were the last time we met with you back in February. We presented our schematic design estimate, which you can see in the red column that represent where we were with construction at that time. We compared it to the gray column, which is the pre-bond budget. So if you remember, we were roughly $250,000 down on construction cost at that point. A lot of that had to do with site, but there was a lot of work that went on to get that coordinated to make sure that we hit our budget target. And then on the next slide, we were also looking at the master budget overall. This shows where we were. So some of that savings did get shifted down into the soft cost side of things. But overall, we were right on budget at $51,400,000 for your overall bond. I just thought it was worth revisiting that for a second. So as we move forward, I'm now going to compare our current estimate in red again, which is the design development stage, which you've just seen in the renderings and drawings that DLR shared. As you can see, we're really pretty close to where we were at schematic. And again, schematic is now in the gray column to the left. We were at $40,877,000 back in February, and now we're at $40,814,000 roughly. So we are down just a little bit. Again, there has been some movement in some of the numbers realigning with our scope. So we'll go in through some of that here in just a minute. But as Aaron mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we are overall on budget. So that's good. So what I've done here is on the left, there's the schematic design layout for the site, and on the right is where we are today. And right below it, there's some cost variances, whether some cost increases or decreases overall on how it impacted the budget. I don't plan to go through those line by line today. You should have a copy of that. If you have some specific questions, we can address those as we get through the presentation, and we can backtrack to this. But the biggest is we're just getting caught up now with the additional parking to the southeast, the drive realignment along the east of the building. That's really where most of our cost is coming into play. We had some other things that get adjusted along the way up and down, but those are the major cost drivers. In the end, we're up about $870,000 on the site. We'll go through how we made that up on some of the other areas. So on the next slide, this is the academic edition. And this includes administration and the cafeteria. Again, schematic design is on the left, design development on the right. Obviously, a lot more has gone into the development of the design, and we have a lot more information. But the biggest thing that's really contributed to our savings on this, as you can see, we're about $432,000 down on the administration wing, which is good. That came with coordination with HVAC controls. We had some meetings with your group to make sure we aligned that with the needs of the facility. With electric, this honestly is coordination between your IT staff on what Forrest is going to be doing versus what our construction team will be doing. So those are the two biggest savings there in HVAC and electric. So on the next slide, this is the Fitness and Wellness Center addition. Of course, it does include the choir, but probably the biggest contributors to our scope changes have to do with the skin as the first one on here. And I included an image down there on the lower right. At the SD level, we made some decisions to look at options on the skin to reduce the amount of metal panel on the back side, the south side of the building. At the DD level, we wanted to run through that and make sure if the budget could handle it, that we could include it. But we're studying options right now. If there's opportunities on the south side, again, with limited view from drive lanes, we can look at some alternative materials to save some money there. HVAC, there's some coordination there. As I mentioned, on the academic side, it came down. On this side, it actually came up once the design team was able to get through sizing the equipment for the space. There's some other changes in the choir addition. There's a corridor that now runs through and connects the existing campus together, whereas before it was closed off, creating an awkward loop. So that was opened up. Some additional square footage were impacted in the choir rooms itself. And then there's some restrooms, additional restrooms there in this end of the renovation. Those are the major drivers for some of the cost adds. But again, we have some other design development that has reduced cost with the lockers and associated plumbing in the locker rooms now that we have more design. So again, if you have any other questions with some of these other ones, jot them down and we'll get to them here at the end of the presentation. The high school renovations themselves, we've seen the most probably design input in this round as far as the high school renovations, so we're getting caught up with that. Really, we're on budget with everything. There's a couple scope adds that we want to talk about. One of them is the polished concrete that you're aware of that got it added into the early site package. So that corridor just north of the existing gym, we're going to perform that work this summer. So we did have some money set aside there, but it was not a full floor replacement and polish. So that's only worth $14,000. It's not a big driver in cost. Then the next one is the Performing Arts Center canopy. So right outside the auditorium, there's a canopy there. The design team is working to make sure that that has a cohesive design. And when you're talking about the athletic center entry canopy and the new academic entry canopy. So the design team can address that as well, but we do think it really is good to have that a cohesive canopy where it otherwise would kind of stand out there. So there's some increased cost there that we picked up. Overall, we're not up much on the high school renovation. Probably the biggest swing in cost is actually in the West Campus. I think most of us knew this was coming as we were not planning to spend as much in the Parks and Rec area. which equated to almost 720,000 of the savings. So originally we were planning to renovate quite a bit more space there, most of which was going to involve the kitchen renovation. So we're not spending that money, so we're recognizing that savings. Also, with the district office spaces, when we were developing the pre-bond budget and early planning, we weren't quite sure what all of the renovation scopes were going to entail. So we worked with the design team and just established some kind of blanket unit prices in there based on the square footage as you see off to the left. So the district office spaces, 1,100 square feet at what we called medium renovation as one example, was roughly $145 a square foot assigned to that space. That included some mechanical upgrades and other improvements that we aren't spending now in today's layout. So most of what we're dealing with is finishes, whether it's flooring, paint, ceilings. So some of the costs we had allocated there just isn't necessary in our current layout and design. So that was a really significant savings. This does also include updating the wrestling in this facility. So all of these numbers are now aligned with that scope as well. So pretty significant savings there, but that was very intentional. One other thing, just worth note that the building permits down there, $60,000, is just shifted into our scope. So we were just accounting for that, but it's really a shift in the master budget dollars. So high level, that's where we are right now, and it does balance itself out. To the most part, any savings is getting shifted into the design contingency to make sure we're maximizing your bond dollars. And Aaron will go through the master budget and if there's any other items we want to earmark for some of that savings.
All right, thanks, Joel. So yeah, as Joel said, you know, as we talked about during the schematic design, the overall master budget of the $51.4 million bond project, at schematic design there was about $10,522,000 that was in the estimated soft costs. That's increased a little bit just due to the slight decrease from the construction cost side of the ledger to get us to that even 51.4. So you'll see in the breakdown, most things are, you know, staying pretty much the same. We've got the architectural fees that are based off of the construction value from the DD budget, and miscellaneous soft costs that have to do with some already expended funds for geotechnical inspections and surveys. So the FF&E and miscellaneous furnishings, those adjusted a little bit, but overall are close to the same. It was adding a few things in that we found out during the design development process and just kind of separating out two separate funds between actual classroom furniture and additional equipment that goes into those classrooms, just to be able to account for it a little bit better. So the biggest change really was in the low voltage and equipment, and I think this really just comes from not having a full grasp of what all the scope entailed at the schematic design. There was still some big unknowns in terms of the fiber work and the data cabling. We also made some back and forth adjustments in scope between the soft costs and the construction costs there. So this aligns more with what we know now. Worked through that with the district and Forest on allocating those scopes out. So the remaining utility and development fees, we talked through that during our presentation on the summer scope of work. A lot of those are pretty well known now. The owner's rep fees obviously have stayed the same, and special inspections and abatement have adjusted a little bit based on the scope, the more known scope of the abatement now. And I increased special inspections a little bit. as we have found that there's some extra funds in the soft cost budget, just to allow some flexibility as we work with the design team and the engineers in finalizing the scopes. We've talked a little bit about potentially doing some commissioning activities if the district is interested, just to provide a little bit more assurance on the function of the final HVAC system, or any other special inspections that would increase the transparency of quality down the road. So the biggest change here is an owner contingency. As we made the adjustments in the other soft cost items, there's really just some funds that we are looking at now with items that were not initially assumed in the scope of the bond project, that we believe now we can start to develop further with the design team as we move into the construction documents. So of this $2.3 million that's listed on owner contingency, really that's broken up into a couple of different things. I think what the intention here is that the district would continue to hold 2 to 3% of the construction cost as a owner contingency going into the start of the project. That would be for things that come up during the project, whether it's changes that the district wants to make as we move along, or it being a renovation project, anything that's discovered that was unforeseen from the beginning of the project, those contingency funds would be there. So that would be, roughly $1 million to $1.2 million of that 2.3. Then there is another $500,000 in there that it would be set aside to deal with day 2 FF&E. So that is purchasing any other equipment or furnishings once you occupy the space and realize you need something that we didn't foresee during the design phase, and also just a small contingency for additional abatement or inspections that weren't assumed in the above line items. So with that, there's another $500,000 to $800,000 that I've been working with the district with Lauren Feldkamp and Mark Farrar, have been developing a list of items, a priority list of things to bring back into the project. We have already worked through some of those with the design team and with McCown Gordon to put some design and cost around some of the higher priority items, and we'll continue to vet those out as we move in through construction documents and finalizing the budget. So to just show you a few of those things, a few of those cost options, this is the sheet from McCown Gordon's design development deliverable, and is what they have been working on. You'll see that the numbers aren't quite in order. There have been some options that excuse me, have been looked at and eliminated from this as we've gone through the different phases. These are ones that are still maybes or yeses, or and this, we wanted to share this to show you how that is being tracked. We'll talk about a couple of them specifically. You'll go to the next slide. So one of the larger cost options in terms of dollars is this multi-purpose room. So it's an additional 1,400 square feet. On the left side of your screen is the floor plan that is included in the design development budget that was just presented. On the right hand is the alternate for the multi-purpose room. So you can see that long rectangular area with the extension of the corridor. So that has been something the district has requested for additional use during games, for halftime meetings, for additional storage of the floor-mounted basketball goals, and several other uses for that area. So the budget there, sorry, I think it was $250,000 for that room. So that is on that list that we have been discussing, evaluating to add into the project as we realize some savings in other areas. Oh, the site plan here, it's a little hard to see on here, but the lighter gray areas in the paving are areas that are in good enough shape to mill and overlay versus do a full depth asphalt replacement. So that is something that we have put a dollar value to if those areas were to be full depth replacement as well, and something that we continue to analyze. And the last one, I know has been a back and forth conversation for a while, and wanted to share this. We kind of put together just before we finished design development. So just bear with us on the actual level of design on this, but this shows a ticket booth, a built-in ticket booth at the north entry into the commons for the gymnasium. So it has 2 ticket windows there, an access door. You can see on the upper right-hand image. The idea would be that all traffic coming in would funnel right towards that ticket booth location. So DLR is working through, developing the design of that. So it's not just a gray box, but that is what is being looked at for the ticket booth option. All right, Callan Gordon is going to speak a little bit more on the master schedule.
Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Darren Lee with McCown Gordon. The last time we met, we had a site logistics video that we played for the Tongi Strong board meeting. So instead of basically playing the same video, we provided a rolled up summary schedule. A more detailed schedule has been provided out there, but for purposes tonight, this is basically just a summary schedule. And I just wanted to kind of at a high level go through, give you the overall just kind of time frame of each phase, just as a reminder. So phase 1, again, this summer 2020, the site utilities and the demo package, that GMP was approved last Monday. We appreciate that. Thank you. And the teams out there right now, or at least they're making preparations for mobilizations this week. And over the next 5 to 10 days, you'll start seeing a lot of things happening out there. That will go through until basically the first part of August, and we'll be ready for kids to come back the first day that the school has activities. Phase 2 is the learning center, the academic wing, and the kitchen and cafeteria. Right now, with documents coming out in August, we will bid that in September for the September board meeting, and with the start of early October. Right now, and that runs through the end of 2021. Within that time frame, we'll also complete the site work that's will be within the fences on the west side. If you remember the site logistics plan, we will complete all the paving, the basically curb gutter landscaping. So when we turn that building over, it'll all be complete with all the site work. While we're doing phase 2, summer of 2021 happens, and we will go into the north parking lot, which is the student parking lot there at the north now. We will complete those renovations in the parking lot. We'll also go into the main building, start the renovations there. And the main focus is going to be basically prepping that existing building to make sure that it's ready to be turned over when we turn the new academic wing over. So a lot of the focus will be in the above ceiling work. It's going to be making sure the fire alarm's ready to be transferred over, the PA system, the clocks, any kind of plumbing tie-ins, sprinkler tie-ins, anything that we have to do, we'll make sure that we've got that ready so that when We turn the academic wing over and they move in, frees up the athletic side. All those front ends for the fire alarm and PA system, are currently on the east end of the building. So those will be demoed and go away. So we have to make sure that before we can turn over that classroom wing, that everything inside the building, all the systems are ready to be tied into the new academic wing. Phase 3 then will start January of 2022. That's the athletic wing and the choir room. Again, we'll do the site work within our compound. When we turn that over, it'll start January. Right now, we're looking at latter part of fall. We're going to do everything we can to speed that end date up. But right now, just based on kind of what we know, with having some asbestos abatement to do in there and having a little bit of structural bracing to do before we can even get started doing demo, we're looking at the latter part of the fall of 2022. So also, when the renovation of the academic wing is complete, the West Campus then will move into that new academic wing. So that frees that up for us to start renovating at the same time, January of 2022. So that'll take us, looks like probably about 4 months to renovate. So by May, at that point in time, then the administration ought to be able to start considering moving back into that building. Summer of 2022, we'll do any final renovations to the existing building, and any last bit of site work that maybe wasn't picked up that was within our compounds that we didn't get to during construction. So the only other comment I've got is the schedule. I know one of the comments that the board has made has been, tying schedule dates of school activities and district calendar into our schedule. Right now, it is based on what we know of the district calendar. And as the calendar gets populated, as we go into the school year, we start learning when the athletic events are, some of the fine arts events, all those kinds of things. We will be definitely spend a lot of time with Mark and understanding what that entails and what we need to do on site to make sure that we don't interfere with those operations. So that's really all I have for the schedule.
Sorry, this is Erin again.
I was about ready to ask if anyone had any. I was about ready to ask if anyone had any questions.
Yeah, that is all we had for the presentation, and we will open it up to questions.
All right, board members, who would like to go first? Justin, go ahead.
Okay. So I guess a couple of thoughts that I had, and first of all, it looks beautiful. So I think the work that you guys did is incredible. I guess, one of the questions, there were a couple of big ticket items that we dropped significantly. So electric and low voltage went from, cut in half, 3 point something to 1.7 or something. Likewise with the West Campus. But, it would still appear as though we're pretty much spending all the money. And I guess I'm just curious, as a board member, I'm going to be expected to account for that, and just would love to get others' perspective on, what would be the 10,000 foot view of where we should say the dollars went. Particularly, when we looked at the delta between schematic and design, it looked like the classroom wing went down, but both the site and the gym went up. And just from an optics perspective, that feels like it's hard to account for a little bit, spending less money on the classrooms and more money on the gym and the site. So I guess just give me some thoughts on those two big items in particular, and particularly the optics around where those dollars went and the discrepancy between the reduced classroom dollars, but the increased gym and site dollars.
So I guess I can start with that, and maybe look for Joel to step in on it too. I think just in a little bit of it, as Joel was explaining through the classroom, one of the biggest adjustments downward in scope was the electrical, which didn't actually reduce any overall scope in the project. It was really just an alignment between the work that the district is doing through the soft costs and the cabling versus doing it under the construction costs. So it's a little there, and there's a couple other things like that that are a little misleading on the surface. So there really was no scope cut out of the classroom addition at all. Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. However, it appeared as if the soft cost, low voltage electrical and the construction electrical both went down.
Yeah, I think it was more of a double up in the schematic design. I think we were carrying some in the soft costs and in the construction costs. And I know the soft cost low voltage number is misleading. And I'll be honest, that was probably an overcompensation on my part at schematic design of just coming on board and trying to understand what that scope was. So really kind of, those scopes can eat up that money pretty fast. So I was being a little overcautious probably on that at schematic design.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'd like to address the comment on the academics again. And I don't know if we can flip to what page is this, 49. It has our cost progression for the fitness and wellness edition, basically the gymnasium or the images. Yeah, that slide there. So if you look at the exterior building skin and HVAC, that includes the choir space. And
Okay.
that choir got larger with some larger practice spaces. It also got taller in volume. That had an impact on our mechanical system. Along with that, the next three items on that list that are 140,000, 130, and another 125,000, those three items are specifically related to the choir area in that corridor. So unfortunately, it's kind of how we bucketed this with the gymnasium. Overall, I think if the choir would have been part of the classroom edition, you'd have seen it's probably more balanced than you think on where we're spending that money.
So Joel, on that, based upon what you just said, it almost looks like that choir is over $500,000. Is that accurate?
The choir itself contributed about 140,000. Some of the HVAC is with that. Some of the additional skin is in there as well.
And the heights are at 125, and the restrooms at 130.
Yeah. Yeah, the restrooms are really unrelated to the choir themselves. Those are more for the actual gymnasium and the account when you have a fully loaded gym. So, yes, there's a very noticeable value associated with the choir. I will say that, but it's not $500,000. But
okay,
Joel,
yeah, there's a lot going with that corridor there too. That you could say is part of the choir. You could say it's part of the fitness.
Joel, that context is really helpful, and I really not throwing grenades. I think the design looks great. I'm just, optics matter, and I want to make sure that that we can speak to where those dollars went. So thank you for the context there. Go ahead. Sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah,
No,
I just believe me, I know what the optics were. I was concerned about that too. But if you think about it, we knew some decisions were being made and we were going to have to offset those. So the parking, as an example, and the site changes that went along with the drive lanes, and it had a little bit of a trickle effect out there. We knew we were going to have to offset that, and some of that, or most of that, we knew was going to have to come out of the West Campus. So we weren't sacrificing the program we promised to your constituents. So we fought pretty hard to make sure that this balanced. And I am just going to redirect, if you could, to slide 46, which is the DD summary. If you see there, and I'm sorry, it is in small print, but we still have 300,000 in escalation. That's going to get us from today to an August bid point with the remainder of the packages. We also have 5.5% design contingency at 1.83 million that's still in the project. We talked about whether or not we could go down to 5% on design contingency, and we talked about whether or not escalation is a real thing in today's market. We're bidding projects right now that are coming in at 5-year lows. But in August, we don't know what that's going to look like, if there's going to be a overcorrection, if there's going to be schedule challenges, those kinds of things. So we wanted to be smart and hold on to as much of that risk management contingency that we could. So if anything, where it looks like optics are playing into it, it's how we manage that contingency, and we got as tight as we could there. And then, a lot of that owner contingency down in the owner side of things, again, helps it make it look like it balances out. And as Aaron mentioned, we can look at other opportunities to enhance your program, provide needed improvements or renovations or scope that are outside the project. Or there's also opportunities if you look at returning some of the bond dollars and reducing maybe the mill levy. But most of the time, our districts are looking to maximize the bond that they're spending because that's what everybody voted on. They're willing to go to that 3 mill levy, I think was the point, because they knew they wanted a nicer facility. They knew they needed it. So I think that's why we've been so focused on making sure we hit your budget target and not just handing you dollars back.
I appreciate that reference back to that slide and that detail and the contingency. I mean, I think it's a good thing to hold on to those funds for the unknowns that possibly could be out there.
When is the plan for that design contingency to roll back? Is that at the GMP?
So we'll do another gut check at 50% CDs at that point, just to make sure we're still on target. If the market has moved, if there's any major scope changes, we want to make sure we pick those up so we have an opportunity before the documents hit the street to correct that, whether it's adding some more alternates or other measures there. So we'll check that then. At that point, I expect that design contingency to be around maybe 3%, depending on where we're at with the documents, whether it's 50% CDs, 25 or 90%. But of course, when we hit the bid, that design contingency will be 0 because we'll ultimately have the true value in hand with our bids, and there will be no reason to carry design contingency up at that point. So I just want to remind everybody the design contingency there is to fill the gaps that we don't know yet. So the next step with the design team is to start detailing wall sections, start to actually finish out the details on foundations and building connection points and those kinds of things, of where we'll end up spending that money. So that's why it's there.
Thank you. I have some questions related to the gym.
Go ahead, Drew. Go ahead. I figured I had you at the top of my list of questions, but Justin beat you to it.
Well, that's all right. I like Justin. Justin asks excellent questions, so I like when he asks questions. So on the gym layout, if you want to go to that enlarged view for the gym layout. Yeah. So just a general comment. Right now, I'm just not getting the sense that it's as integrated as the academic wing that we have shown. I'm a little concerned with the space utilization, with especially on that end side of the gym, and how far back that sets from the court. We did such a, I know the team did such an amazing job at pulling in all of the different teachers and a huge number of people during the programming phase of the academic wing, and I don't know if that process happened here with that number of folks, because as I look at this, it almost looks like it was a gym, and then there was a decision to add some additional seats, and that went on to the side, and then things went down to the bottom, and then the concession went on to the end back on the southwest corner. And I'm just worried that the flow and the space utilization isn't as optimal as the academic wing. We had some initial discussions very early on prior to the DD, I think, of top loaded. I think we went through just a couple different things with regards to height of the building, and everything was, as we looked at that, we decided that due to cost and budget reasons, we didn't want to take that to go that route. However, now at the DD, we're still, total, and I know the significant portion of that's due to the choir side. It's in that bucket. That's why I was interested in how much it was related to the choir. But we're at least $500,000 or more over on it, even if though we didn't get those initial asks with regards to loading, whether it be mid loading or top loading. And I see a long corridor there, which that just looks like a lot of floor space and square footage. I'm just concerned that the space utilization and the cost effectiveness that we're getting there isn't quite there. Especially, I kind of tried to scale it out. It almost looks like from the right-hand side over to the east, we almost have another half court of space there, which at $300 and some a square foot, that's a lot of money. And putting the people back probably 35 feet maybe from the out of bounds. That just seems, and I know the why, because it looks like the doors and everything are required, but that just doesn't. I'm just really worried that nobody's going to want to sit there, and it's going to get a nickname that nobody likes. So I'm just worried about this. That this is going to be, especially since we talked about this being a very visible part of the entire project. A lot more people are going to see this versus the academic wing. And right now, I think the academic wing is looking very good. I'm just worried that this isn't quite as developed.
Drew, this is Erin, I can start a response there, but I'll throw it to DLR. But going back to your comments about, all the different options that were discussed on this gym and the input that was received. So I want to assure you that the amount of attention that the gym has gotten has definitely been at least equal to the Learning Center. We've talked to, the several people within the administration, as well as several of the coaches and athletic trainers involved with this. So there was a great deal of thought put into the programming of it. I think the room I'll let DLR talk about the space. I don't know exactly what that space is for that east set of bleachers. That was to accommodate the additional seating. We looked at several different options to get the 2,300 capacity that the district was after in this gym. One of the options was to go to kind of a mezzanine level on the north and south bleachers, and then kind of tuck some of those support spaces partially underneath. And then there was this extra space onto the end. We did talk about the top loading or the higher ceiling that seemed to be, too costly of an approach for the project. So I don't know if DLR wants to add a little bit more about how the layout of the space and how you see the flow.
Yeah, I'll take a stab. So part of it is the circulation, wanting to allow enough room around the court for circulation during events, having enough overrun. At the west end, the east end is a little more generous, but we've been asked to include that as a student section, so that there's some activity associated with with halftime and everything else and getting prepped. So there will be more activity on that end. The exits do come into play, so we had to. Part of it is also maximizing seating capacity. We have to, if we would have gone higher than 14 rows, we would have had to add more stairs, more stair aisles, and then you start defeating yourself when you add more stairs and trying to pick up more seats. And you're picking up more stairs sometimes than you are seats. So we tried to, we kept it to 14 rows so that we could maximize the layout within the footprint. The corridor back behind is. I agree. It is wider, but those are teams that are moving out, in large groups from the court. They also they wanted, part of it is a safety thing for the players. It was requested that we find a way to allow the students to exit. Be able to use a separate exit than the fans, so that we could minimize that cross traffic or confrontation after games, so that we could improve the safety for the student athletes. It also allows the kids that are in the band in the student section a way to get there without having to walk across the court. So. And it also allows us to use those locker rooms and have access out to the practice field.
Yeah, at the higher level, following what Justin was saying, it's a perception, because with pre-bond, we started with almost 15% larger square footage and 25% lower price. So there's been. And now I know there's been a lot of things, as we found, there's a wall, there's a choir, there's some additional stuff, but the perception that's a tough one to swallow, just because, you know, it went from $256 a square foot to 345. I mean, that's a big jump. And I don't know how much is related to a scope over that time, but it's just, and I'm concerned there's a definite trend there. At every stage, it's gone up.
So, another part of that increase, and again, DLR jump in, because this happened kind of right at the beginning of schematic design, but was the further development of this commons space in between the two gyms, and really developing that into a community space that could be used for both athletic and non-athletic gatherings. And that space is really developed. And then there were some details when we moved away from, the top loading or the extra height in the gym. There's been some additional details developed to really keep that at the direction of the district, to keep that unique quality to the gym. And I think that's where you're seeing some of that as well too.
Yeah. I have some other questions just related to design criteria. Is that okay to ask that?
Yep. Yeah. Why don't you go ahead, and then Chris and Stephanie, I see you guys have got a couple questions on the chat that I want to address too.
Okay, so one of my first questions is, are we at the point to where we're programming that commons area between there, to as far as what type of uses it could be? For example, power in the floor, for booths, for, if we have career fairs or companies come in to present, or other activities where there's tables. Do we have that kind of flexibility programmed into the space?
It is
around the gym.
Sorry,
area.
you talked
Around the gym. Yeah, between the gyms.
So yes, essentially it's been left as an open, flexible space. We haven't really gotten into the detail of DLR might have shown some outlet locations yet, but we're still working on furniture, just getting into furniture development and stuff for that space.
Yeah, I think flexibility for that, with being able to set that up in a number of different ways, is going to be important. The toilet rooms there, the men's and women's toilet rooms, are those sized to support activities going on at the same time in both gyms?
Yes. Robin, remind me, but I think there's a certain calculation for not necessarily both gyms being 100% full at the same time.
Okay. Well, what is the number? Do we know what that is?
Yeah, it's on our plumbing fixture count on the code sheet, and I'm sorry, Drew, I do not know that off the top of my head.
So
we have met the plumbing fixture count for the IBC, the Uniform or the International Building Code.
Okay, for both gyms being occupied and having activities going, is that correct?
It's just for the main gym, the big gym.
Okay, so where are the restrooms for the existing gym? Okay, if somebody can move the pointer.
Actually, yeah, Robin, this is Amber.
Yep.
Just to add to what Robin was saying. So it's kind of, we get the benefit of, I'm sorry, baby crying at the same time. I've got to talk.
That's fine.
The total occupancy, you understand codes enough to know that code is allowing for a number of people in the room way more than we would ever have in a room. You know, a classroom would have 45. We would never have 45 students in a classroom.
Right.
So when we figure the total occupancy by the IBC, it happens to equal out to the same amount as if both gyms were full at the same time. So by meeting the occupancy of the entire building, we're also meeting the occupancy, the plumbing count for both gyms being full as well. Now, that is all to say that they're not all just located right here adjacent to these two gyms. Because I think that's like building your church for Easter Sunday. I mean, that would be a lot of costs that would be hard to justify to the community. But however, the plumbing fixtures are there. So, you know, will someone have to walk down to these other restrooms that are right outside the auditorium? Maybe if they wait, you know, a minute and a half, but probably not. So we're trying to, you know, go down the middle, be practical about it, but still meet the code.
Yep.
And hopefully your community won't have to be waiting long lines to use the restroom.
Yep, I understand. And I asked that question because in a scenario where we have something going on in both gyms, because we were talking about the ability to segregate the buildings for security reasons between the art side and the athletics and the academics. So if restrooms are needed to be shared between them, then that changes the security and where the door locations and that strategy. Because right now, if you were wanting to use those restrooms over in the auditorium, then you would have to open those doors and then let people back into that other area. And that is counter to some of the original discussions we had. You follow where I'm going,
Yes.
Robin, neighbor?
Yep, absolutely. And,
Yep.
and something that as we get further down, we make sure I think Aaron and Robin just had an access meeting, kind of confirmed where the zones are. So we'll kind of revisit this again as we start CDs and make sure we've got it all accessible the way we need to.
Yeah, and then even travel path for concessions, is the intent to use the new concession for both gyms, or do you keep the existing concession over by the auditorium for the one? Just scenarios like that, you know, I running through my head to make sure that they're covered and that we don't have a bust when we start running activities in there and realize we missed something.
And the intent would be to use the new concession stand for both gyms, but we're not demoing the existing concession stand.
Right.
It could still be used if needed.
Yeah, it just goes to travel path, right? I mean, and the natural tendency of folks to enter through main exits and how that works, and you know, is it going to get? It's really visible from the new one. I am a little bit. I don't know, and it's tough to tell at this scale whether or not that concession is the line for the concession is going to interfere with the doors and the entrance there at the gym. But it doesn't look like you could do it at the other side, because then the line is interfering with the flow in the hallway as well, potentially. So that looks like a very congested area, or it potentially could be.
Yeah, we took a look at that, and that's why we angled the concession like that to try and alleviate some of that traffic flow.
Okay.
Got some additional questions, Drew?
I'll let other people talk.
I think we're on the gym. I know there was a couple in the chat by Chris and Stephanie.
Yeah. I think, Chris, you had some question about the scoreboard and the athletic equipment. So, and then I think Karen asked about the scoreboard as well. So the video scoreboard is, we're now carrying a pretty decent allowance in the construction costs for a video scoreboard. And that is one of the increases in the gym costs that you are seeing there. So I think once we were shaking everything out and, knew that that was something that was wanted to be incorporated for kind of an enhanced feature in the gym. So that is being carried in there currently. The other equipment increases that were in that number, Chris, we went from ceiling mounted to floor mounted basketball goals at the ends of the court. There was some minor things with scorer's table and game clocks in the locker rooms. And Joel, was there anything else? I'm trying to think what else was in that equipment increase. Those were the main ones there.
Sorry, I have to unmute myself twice. Yeah, there were some minor things with clocks and the scorer's table, making sure we're lining with the scoreboard as well. But probably the biggest is the floor portable basketball goals. Was probably the biggest chunk of that.
And then, Chris, you'd also asked about thickness of the pavement to access the dumpster and loading dock. I do not know that offhand. I don't know if anyone on the design team has that answer, or if we need to look it up and get back to you.
Yeah, it'll be heavy duty because of the trash trucks.
Josh answered that.
Yeah, Chris, generally that's 8 inches thick of concrete over a 6-inch compacted aggregate base on top of a 9-inch subgrade that's compacted at a 95% proctile rate. So it's heavy duty stuff.
So from the access point from 24 highway to the dumpster pad's going to be that?
We don't show it as that far at this point. I'd have to look at the civils to see what our heavy duty asphalt section, how much that extends. I can't answer that at the moment.
Okay.
But we're going full depth and I believe in that area because of the utilities.
Right.
But I will get that information for you.
Very good.
A little update on the program for the athletic area. In the pre-bond, we had a total of 23,900 square feet. And that included an 18,000 square foot gymnasium. We've got 26, now we have 26 275 program compared to the 23.9. So we picked up a couple thousand feet there. And then that didn't include the student section. That was an addition, another request. So that gymnasium is actually closer to 20,000 now. So it actually grew in size over time.
So I feel like we're hearing a fair bit of concern about the dollars that are spent on the athletics section. And obviously there's pros and cons to that, right? But when we think about the phasing and knowing that this is a subsequent phase, if there are things that come up in the classroom wing phase that would impact the overall budget, what's our flexibility to take things out here? Obviously we can't go back to the drawing board completely, but when's kind of our go, no go when we really can't make any more changes to the athletic wing?
And that was Justin speaking, correct?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I think it depends on what you're talking, what kind of changes you're talking about, Justin. I mean, I think in terms of, the overall layout, square footage of the gym and the way it is and this addition and the way it's designed, it'd be pretty hard pressed to go backwards at this point. This design has been, that was kind of the schematic design phase when we kind of lock in square footages.
I'm not sure I'm talking about that far.
Yeah.
Aaron, I think I'm talking more the multi-purpose room and the $100,000 video scoreboard and some of those.
And those are, yeah. So the multi-purpose room we've talked about is probably needs a go, no-go decision sooner than the other items, because it does need to, the design needs to be further developed, and but it is being kind of developed as an alternate right now. But items such as the video scoreboard, there are some design integration with the audio visual system, but there's still time on those sort of decisions, and those are easier to adjust as we move forward.
Yeah, Justin, my concern, this is Drew, isn't that I think we're looking good with regards to contingency, both owner and design. My concern isn't that we need the money. My concern is that we spend the money and don't get, that people question the value of what we spent. To talk about those bleachers over there, that is a ton of space out there in front. Like if there was some way to pull those forward, angle the bleachers around, and create kind of an end around with doors to the outside and exits that are at an angle or something like that, then all of a sudden that takes this space and makes it look pretty darn cool. But right now, if you're setting up there, if you're even setting on the first floor, you're just so far back from the court that my concern is that we're paying money for bleachers and floor space, and they're undesirable seats.
This is Stephanie. I thought that space was going to be used for the student section. And I think when you have the cheerleaders and the band and everybody else in there, it won't look as spacious as it does on the picture.
Yeah, that is correct. That space was designed for the student section. So the prime seats are to the north and the south.
And for graduation overflow space and the band.
Do we have dimensions on that? I mean, I know.
I pulled some dimensions off. It's to the outside of the baseline. It's 18 feet to the stairs. So from the actual court to the end of the stairs, it'll be 24 feet.
It's going to look like a lot. I mean, we have a spacious amount on the sides, considering, for traffic and stuff. You're going to be feeling like you're sitting way back in the hole.
This is Kaya. I just wanted to, I already wrote a long email about how I dislike that area of the gym. So I won't bore everybody with my comments because I already shared them with people, but I wanted to just say that I have, 2 kids that are in high school. One is a big Red Club leader, ambassador, whatever. I don't know what their correct terminology is, but anyway, neither of my children would be excited to sit in that area because they're both sports lovers and very competitive people, and they don't want to sit in a viewpoint where they can't see the game. And I also worry about having the pep band and the students right there in that section, because anybody with sensory issues, the pep band's awesome, but they're very loud. And my daughter, who is a part of the Big Red Club leadership, she said, they work very hard on creating theme nights, and the goal is not only to energize the students, but it's also to energize the crowd in general. So I just think, sitting 24 feet back from the court line is doing a disservice to the student body.
Well, I mean, our band currently sits quite a ways away because they sit at the top lofts of the gym. In the far up now. I mean, I understand the Big Red sits close to the court, but I don't know. I don't know how we adjust and deal with that section. I mean, it does seem expensive real estate, but it seems like there's usually ample space at our games. And the students could be relocated somewhere else with the band at the end, but I don't know. I mean, I assume the coaches and the administration, I don't know if there's any comment from that group on how this was all come about.
So, hey, good evening. This is Mark. I think one thing we know for sure is that the band is really loud. Yes. I would agree that the student section does not need to be right there, right next to them. I do think they're more influential when they're close to the court, like where they are now. But that stuff, I was under the impression that where the student section sat, we can modify that. But the band is pretty loud. And if you've been to a game, even when our band is way up top, it's really loud. And I'm typically across the gym. So I would hate to put the band anywhere else but at the end. I don't know what the rest of your thoughts are on that. I just don't want them blasting the eardrums of people on each side. With the scoreboard, that's a great question. I think one thing that we need to remember is that the video scoreboard is largely, in large part, a programming tool that fits into our curriculum. In this digital world that we're trying to prepare a very large number of kids for using these types of technology, and we're trying to prepare them for careers in the graphic arts fields. So I don't want everyone to think, wow, that's really glitzy and fancy. It serves an educational purpose. It also serves the functionality of the games as you can put statistics up there, you can put advertising up there. That's just something I want the board to remember. So I know that's perception is everything, but I think in the midst of worrying about perception, we need to be able to explain it and explain what its real purpose is. I hope that helps a little bit.
Is this space, I mean, Drew brings up a point of it. Don't want to have space that doesn't get used. I mean, is this designed to be helpful for practices? I mean, I assume the bleachers are tracked, or I don't know if they'll be out all the time.
Right.
I think we're running 2 courts crossways for practice, so that I don't know how we plan to utilize all this.
Yeah, so I see a lot of that space being used for things like yoga class. We've got lots of PE classes. That's a lot. When those bleachers, those end bleachers are folded up, that's quite a bit of space and usable space for our phys ed and dance team practice, you name it, whatever we need to put in there. But it's quite a bit of space.
So I believe that Tammy actually, when she met with the PE teachers, there are going to be court markings underneath those bleachers when they fold back for the PE classes specifically. Is that right, Tammy?
Yeah, we've got the diamond grids and ladders underneath there. Also, or the 5-point dots and the ladders for running drills. And
so it appears as if the space that's needed fits underneath those bleachers. Is that then correct?
Correct.
So I get back to my point of what is limiting us from pulling that forward and reworking and figuring out how to handle the doors and exits and tightening that up on that end.
We can do that. Those two, the north and the south end of that student section would lose as many rows as you pull it forward. And those are, it's 2 foot per, about 2 foot per row.
I think that there's some options available to us to investigate that to make it work for all scenarios equally well. Both with the bleachers out and with the bleachers in. Because I really like the idea of having noise and stuff behind that score, behind at that end of the court. It's just that they're a long ways back. That's all.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Chris.
How is the square footage of this new gym in relationship with the gym at the West Campus?
You said at the West Campus?
Right. No. The West Campus gym, what is the square footage of it compared to this new gym we're building?
This one has to be much larger, Chris. I mean, that one, I don't even know if that's a regulation size over there.
Yeah, this one's much bigger.
And there's,
And we added in the seating and all that.
there's only one set of half bleachers over there. DLR, do you guys have that square footage from
I do not.
anywhere?
Ian's pulling it up. I
We
think.
may have to get back to you on that.
Is there another question, or what's the thought there, Chris?
Well, I'm just trying to understand, is gym space a problem for us now?
Yes, it is. I know that for a fact because the Phil Jones has said that several times, and so have the volleyball coaches, that when they're trying to run practices, that they don't have enough space to run practice. And actually, I did talk to Phil today because I was trying to understand this gym and how they would actually utilize it. And he did say that if they pushed back the bleachers in that area that the band's going to sit in, that he can send kids over there and have them shoot baskets in that area as well. So he said if you have one team, going cross court on the one side closest to the entry door, and another team like varsity there, and then JV on the next gym, then if you had any players that needed to work on shooting, they could go in that area, where the bleachers are and shoot, put up 100 shots or whatever. But I also know during camps, they run into space problems.
So we're buying multiple portable goals is what you're saying.
No, we're buying 2 portable goals. The cross court will have swing down goals.
Okay. All right.
June says that the West Campus gym space is about 8,000 square feet.
Oh, we're not going to have access. I mean, I think the deal is the rec will have most of that, so we won't be able to use it for practice.
I think Chris's point was that it's significantly what we're talking about is significantly larger, a significant upgrade.
Yeah.
Is that correct, Chris?
Yes, that's right. And I was just trying to understand how our gyms are utilized currently. If space is an issue, but it sounds like it might be.
Well, I don't know what Drew, I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see what it would take to pull that forward just a little bit, because it does seem so far back there. I don't know what that does to us along this process. We're going to lose a few, obviously if it's 2 foot a seat, we're going to lose some capacity, but seems like it might be a
I
little
have
more functional for the top.
tremendous confidence in DLR. I know that they can do something amazing. You like that?
I like it.
Oh, I trust him as well. Is that we've spent a lot of time. Do you have more questions, Drew?
Oh yeah, I got pages here. I'm sorry.
Do
you want to do a restroom break at some point? Because I actually do. I have other things, and I can move relatively quickly through it.
Is there a variety of questions from the other folks, Kaya?
I knew I was second on your list, Jim.
We're being
So of course I have more questions, but I don't have a ton of them, but I do have questions.
well. I mean, how about we take a little 5-minute recess here, if that's okay with everybody? Just to seems like we don't have a whole lot, but if some people need a little pause here. We've typically done that in our regular meetings. If we could do it in 5 minutes or less and kind of get back going here at 7:55. There you go, Drew.
Okay.
I think I would just have everybody mute their microphone while they're gone.
Yeah, please don't take your phone and you're with you to the bathroom.
10-4.
I appreciate it, DLR and McCown Gordon's patience here with us. All right. Forrest, I'm showing and Andrea, it's 7:55. Call the meeting back to order. Just double check. Chris, are you still there? Is everyone back? Chris?
Drew is.
Drew's back.
I'm back.
Back. This is Justin.
Stephanie?
Yes, I'm back.
Karen?
I'm back.
All right. Sound like Chris jumped in too. All right. I think we're going through some questions. Drew had a few more. You want to finish off or kind of jump in?
Kai, do you want to go?
No, go ahead.
All right. So on the site, I have a couple things. The greenhouse was listed as there was a variance of $100,000 for upgrades for the greenhouse. I'd seen the greenhouse on the previous drawing, so I was just curious to know what the scope was for that would account for $100,000 in a greenhouse upgrade.
So Drew, we're still working through that. We're meeting with a vendor actually this week and the teacher to further develop that scope. But we're trying to be cognizant of the funds. So that is still, we're still designing that.
Okay, so that's still fluid.
Yes.
Okay. The bike rack location, I think that we probably ought to look at that location. Not a big thing. And then I had a question on the landscaping and at what point is the landscaping defined with regards to irrigation and vegetation and thinking about maintenance and around the buildings and around equipment and that kind of stuff? When is that covered?
Yeah, so Drew, we have the species selected at the moment. They're all very common locale species that are drought tolerant, I should say. And as far as irrigation scope, pretty much the front entryway, the landscape beds around where it says entry canopy and the front door, if you will, that is identified as to be irrigated.
Okay. Has Mitch and others been involved with that, just to, trimming and mowing considerations?
Not at this point, but with the irrigation, with our spec, we require a training with the owner. The contractor's required to provide an owner's operation manual. So there will be a training on that. In terms of grass trimming and clipping, there is a 90-day maintenance period from the point of substantial completion once the work is done that the contractor's on the hook for, at which time after that 90 days, the district takes over.
Yeah, if our appropriate people in the district haven't seen that, then my only request of the administration would be that they have an opportunity to look at that, and if there's any comments or anything or any questions that we don't want to have them come in after the fact and tear it up and do something different because there was something we missed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Got it down.
Okay.
Drew, we are doing a more in-depth page turn with maintenance, the administration, and going through some of these details. So I made a note as well that when we do that, that is set actually for tomorrow. So we'll point that out.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was all my site questions. If other people want to jump in if we're on this topic.
Anyone have a site related question?
Yeah, I guess I do. So on the gymnasium, we have never seen any views, or if I have, I don't recall it, from the football field. So if you're driving up that driveway or you're at the football field looking at the building or on the south side of the building, I assume that it's just straight material. There's no doors or windows looking from the football field view. And then from the south side, based on what I could see from the drawings, there's just one set of windows that look like it goes into one of the locker rooms, but then the matching locker room that's next to it, it appeared to me that that same set of windows isn't in that locker room. So I'm just trying to figure out what the exterior of that building looks like.
The windows actually go into the team media room and then the choir. So those are, I think, further down. There's no windows in either of the locker rooms or the training room. There are the two doors, this set of doors that you on the north side of the student section that you'll see, but it's around the corner from there. The materials that we pointed out on the rendering of the gym and the north facade, those materials carry around to the east and the south sides. So that lower portion of the locker, it's a lower volume for the locker room area, and then it steps back up. So that lower portion would be brick. And then above that, where it steps back up, you know, back behind 40 feet or so, you would have the metal panel above that.
Does that answer your question, Kai?
Yeah, so there's no other, I'm just trying to visualize it. Like, I guess the west side of the west campus doesn't really have windows along it, really. I'm just trying to figure out how many square feet that is, or not square feet, how many feet along that is, and if it's just going to look, I don't know. I'm worried about it.
The south or the east, I mean, it will be just all gymnasium. I think there was an effort to not put windows in due to the impact natural light has on the gym and players and different sporting events.
I think the question is can we just get some elevations of those areas as part of just future things? So there isn't much to look at, just so that we have an opportunity to see it. Because I agree with Kaya. I don't think I've seen those elevations really, at least since February or maybe before.
Do you have the presentation that was done to the city planning and zoning that we could pull up, or?
So we do have elevations of that that are colored, and we can send those over. We just have to find them.
Okay. Kai, is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
And this is Erin. I was just going to add that, you know, the site plan that's pulled up right now, you can see there's, you know, a row of trees there separating the drive from the parking lot. So in terms of from the football field or Main Street or even up on State Avenue, you would have some breakup with the vegetation, I think, as well.
You have another question?
Oh, me? Yeah, I was just wondering, I just want to clarify. So when we vote at the end of this, we're voting on you moving forward to the new phase, and there was a page in the presentation on the finishes, and I think that those are not set in stone and that those can change later. So I just want to make sure that that was just for giving us an idea of what possibilities and the general feel is, and that's not exactly what it's going to be.
So Kaya, there were a couple things in there, and Tammy, you can jump in if you want, but a couple of those finishes were fabric ideas for furniture, which have not been selected, or really, that hasn't really become part of the conversation too much yet. So those are kind of ideas that fit with the color palette, and that will be further developed. I think in the general sense of, you know, sticking with the reds and the grays and the whites, that is the direction that they're taking the interior design as a whole.
Aaron, what's the time frame for making these selections?
We have not set a date for a follow-up finish meeting. The next step would be physical samples with specific color selections, and that will be coming pretty soon. The fabrics and finishes on furniture will follow along a little bit later, and will be kind of a separate process from the actual interior design. But in terms of color palette and general interior finish, it's really, I think we would be looking for some level of consensus that this is the right direction. Like I said, we've had two meetings with focus group in the district to get their feedback on this color palette and general direction. So we've kind of been moving forward based on that input.
Okay, so just to clarify, what we're voting on is basically the floor plan.
Yes, the floor plan, and the the finishes, in the sense that this is the right color palette and the right direction for the interior design.
Hey, Kaya, you're kind of beating around the bush. Which of these do you not love?
Drew, they already know. I already sent emails.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions? Because I can move on to.
Let's give some people. I mean, Karen, Stephanie, Chris, you haven't had a chance to jump in yet.
So far, most of the questions I've had have already been answered.
Okay, Karen. Are you there, Karen?
I'm here, Jim. I'm good. I'm good.
All right, just checking. I know Chris chimed in with a couple, so he'll jump in if he needs to. Go ahead, Drew.
I only have 4 more questions. So, one, the West Campus. If you want to go back to the West Campus. There's the ones that's color-coded for the different uses. That's probably a better one. There we go. So my question is security and access between the different spaces. What is the intention for separation between district space and the rec center space?
I can take that one. I don't know if you can zoom in at all, June. So if you see that set of double doors in the hallway on the right, and then shift the drawing down just a bit. There you go. And then the set of double doors to the far left of the blue space, that, yeah, right there. Those two sets of doors will be card readered to keep the rec and or other classroom functions separated from the district office space. So if you come in, the vestibule, the existing main vestibule there on the east side will be access into the district office space. And you can come in through that lobby and be greeted by reception to go to the superintendent office or any of the other offices within that space.
Okay, so what about the space if you're coming from the rec? How far could you get up into the blue area?
That double set of doors there, right? Oh. The double set of doors there, right past the wrestling. So June, if you'd move your cursor right there, that's as far as you get.
And then what about the other side, the other corridor that runs to the north?
So you would have access all the way out north through that corridor out to the north parking lot.
Okay.
But you couldn't get into the rec space, or you couldn't get into the administration space to the right. So part of the conversation with the rec was, access and parking in that north parking lot.
Yeah, but you could walk through the boardroom, into the corridor, through the HR office, and cut right across over into the area. Could you?
That door that goes from the boardroom into the corridor and HR office will be locked. You will not be able to go through there.
Will all the other blue doors also be locked and keyed? Like?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just a little worried about like access into the building for, from the rec up, and the potential for vandalism and that kind of stuff, even if the doors are locked, the hallway. And how that'll work. So that's my comment there is right now it looks like the security line is more of the doors into the rooms versus access into the corridors themselves okay, that was my question on West Campus.
Okay.
Did you have further comment on that, Erin?
Oh, I was just going to say, the thought process was to keep the admin, the district admin space separate, and then let the rest of the building be multi-use space.
Okay.
Which could be modified down the road depending on how some of those other spaces are programmed in the future.
It looks like there's some other doors down here going into that commons that could have some control on them, couldn't they?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Jim. I think the rec classroom is the only space that would be the exception to that.
Right. Like if they were having, they could put unlock and unlock period. I mean, kind of a manual process to lock and unlock at the right times, but looks like we could adapt some processes to control access if we have problems or before we had problems.
Yeah. I would almost say could you put double doors across the hallway between the rec classroom and or after the future rec classroom, so that at that point in time, then the rec is completely isolated from district maintained property.
That's probably something we could address as we move through this, couldn't we? I mean, add in.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Actually, I only had one question there, so I'm down 2 questions. The other thing was academic wing. Actually, the admin area was where I was looking at. I see a lot of angular classrooms because we match the angle of the academic wing with the administrative, squared that up, but then that creates a lot of odd angles inside here. I'm just worried about usable space and just how tight that is or corners, because odd shaped rooms are always a little bit difficult to work with. And what the reasoning was architecturally for that, in lieu of squaring it off and making up the angle at the vestibule and lobby versus at the corners of the existing building.
Well, that was just that move on the angle was to create a visual interest. The angle of the educational wing was actually to make it fit on the site, and then the admin is responding to that. The rooms, I think if you look closely, the offices, in the workroom and conference room, even the nurses station, counselors, all of those are square. Where you get to the odd shaped rooms, one is a break room, one's in school suspension, security storage, and then the reception, which needs that extra space to flow anyway. So I think we tried to minimize the impact on, rooms that want to be rectilinear.
Right.
And use the spaces that could be more adaptable to that.
Okay. All right. And then the last question was just on the academic wing. Some of those classrooms over there, the entrance and doors, I'm just a little worried about if you go in the corners, either of those two corners. The drawings we had showed those at a closer angle. You spread those out, it looks like a little bit now, but just, with getting in and out of the classroom and what the recommendations are for, just so you don't have a whole mess of students coming out at once and potential for issues. I didn't know what the recommendation was or the guidance or architecturally was for that type of thing.
We can study that further. The thought was we have the folding doors that open those classrooms up to the learning labs.
Okay.
We're trying to maximize the exposure of those rooms to the learning labs. I think there's a potential to slide all of that down and minimize the gap in between the two between the folding doors of the two classrooms. And that would push that learning studio door out of the corner by 2 or 3 more feet.
Okay. I think that's all my questions, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Drew.
Hey, Jim, it's Justin. One more quick question. Are we doing anything with HVAC at the West Campus, and do we know how it's zoned right now? Given that a lot of those rec spaces won't be used, all day, every day, do we have the ability to, not keep it 90 in the winter and 60 in the summer in those, or is that, we can take that offline? I think it's going to make a difference with what we agreed to with the rec commission.
As I've been I don't know if our team has looked at that or not.
I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I believe the work that Lauren and the staff have done to evaluate the cost for the rec center has taken into account the functionality of the HVAC. It is and how that is separately zoned. There is no renovation of the HVAC equipment or controls that is part of the scope of work right now.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Chris, anything? No, he's had computer issues going in and out.
Yeah, I was just wondering moving forward on this vote. I mean, we vote. I like the plan. There's been a lot of dedication, a lot of work. But are we going to evaluate and look at some of these concerns? Or are we just rubber stamping this? We're good. We're moving forward.
Well, the most conversation, I guess, I think was about the gym. It sounded like there's a possibility of them incorporating that. I don't know if there's other specific concerns that want to get incorporated into a motion or I don't know. I guess I could look to the team for a response first.
Yeah, I think similar to what we did at the schematic design, when we presented at schematic design, the biggest comments that came out of that was the parking lot and the traffic flow. So as while the board approved the progress of the project and, we keep moving forward, we are going to note the comments and the things that we need to look into and report back on.
What is the timeline that we could expect a report back on these?
I think other than the gym, we talked about some small things like the security access doors and the view of the east elevation. I'm sorry, trying to read back through my notes here. But those things can be a pretty quick turnaround. I think the thing that would take the most time to work through is looking at the gym. So I don't want to speak for DLR there, but it'll have to be quick because we have, a couple months to finish all this up.
And I'm just throwing it out there because, in these upgrades that we've talked about and some of this stuff, we're at $500,000 and we haven't even moved dirt yet. Little concerning.
I was wondering if we could approve everything but the gym area and then see if we could see a new version of that and approve that at a later date. And just me personally, I think that the storage addition is a very important addition. I think absolutely that, there's so much equipment needed for physical education classes and etc. But I think the current space is 25 feet by 55 feet for a storage area, and it's over $200,000. And so I would love it if DLR could look at the space, look at that whole entire space and see if there's a version 2 where the concession stand could be more central between the old gym and the new gym, and maybe a version where the storage room, that area is added, but maybe it has, less storage and, maybe there's another function that that space could serve, or maybe it could be smaller and maybe the bleachers can be pulled forward like Drew mentioned. I guess just seeing a new option, and maybe the answer is that there's not a new option, but it's hard for me to vote for it at this point when I feel like there might be, a new design, looking at it again, that would work best and still, utilize the same or less dollars.
Yeah, I agree with that because my concern is that the gym has always been a little bit behind everything else, and so the schematic we had some of these. We voiced, I think, some hey, it looks like there was some worry that we voiced at that point, and I'm just worried that if I approve it as is without seeing it, then by the time we get to CDs, it's just too late. That then re-looking at it gets really expensive, or either through design or through construction dollars. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah. So this is Robin with DLR Group. So either way, this is going to add some time to the schedule. It's going to take us a while to evaluate this on the gym side. So it's not a 1 day or 2 day deal. So,
Right. You're talking with the respect to design
Yeah.
time for that piece of it.
fine.
not
So
necessarily the
technically we
project.
can't move into construction documents for the gym portion.
Right.
which would push the completion of construction document date, which would push the bid date, which would push the construction start date.
Well, wait a second.
Um,
Wait. So what's the time duration between the start of construction of the fitness and the start of construction for the academic? Are you
So
assuming?
I know where you're going. Yeah, I know where you're going with that, Drew. The plan is to bid all of this out in one package, so we can take advantage of the market as it is right now, but also if we break these up into two different packages, you're going to lose that buying power with trades that are there on site. So the original thinking is we're going to bid this out all at once, even though construction for the gymnasium is not going to start for another year or so. We want to capture this market now that we have, especially with some of the things that we're dealing with right now. But if we push the design of the gymnasium, I think we would want to keep track with the academic wing and get that bid out now. I'll have to defer to DLR to talk about their design schedule, and splitting the packages up is not very efficient either from a design standpoint. It
I
creates
understand
two
that.
separate tracks and all that. So
Yeah. And yeah.
So, but coming from, and the board, I can only speak for myself. I'm just like, I don't want to be in a spot to where we make a decision now based upon a one-time event that then we regret for the duration of the life of the project. That's where I'm at.
I mean, is your decision the space of the gym? I mean, the location of the.
Would it be possible to have an interim follow-up discussion or something like that to show an update on that and still provide approval, but have a commitment for follow-up sooner than just the 50% CD and focus on that one end of the gym? Is that possible?
Yeah, can I ask just to be clear with all the different comments regarding the gym? Can you maybe summarize and clarify, I think, what the board's concerns are with the gym? Are we talking about just this east end bleacher section, looking at if there's a way to get that closer to the floor, and how that maybe relates to the additional additional storage room?
That's my interpretation, but I don't know what Drew's opinion on that would be.
Well, technically, the board can only communicate through motions and votes. But as me as an individual, if I were to make a motion right now, it would be with the east end, the storage, and looking at that at the flow pass from the existing gymnasium to the concession and that utilizing that efficiently, which may be a relocation of that concession. But and that would be a lower priority than the east wing. If the east wing was rounded out and there was doors there and that seating was a lot closer to that end of the field of the court, I would probably approve it with the concession as shown. That's a lower priority for me. The bigger priority is the storage and the the east end with those bleachers. And that's just me. Others may be fine with it as it is, or have additional things or different.
Well, maybe Mark or Lauren or Aaron, maybe you could explain to us how that 55, I mean, it's 200 and some $1,000 and it's 55 feet by 25 feet of space that I think is for storage. So like for me to vote for it, I just would like to understand how that's going to be utilized. Maybe there's more space or, you know, more programming or.
Yeah. You know, I think one of the things, hope you guys can hear me okay. This is Mark. One of the things that we see that space is being used for is, number one, storage, but it could also be used for things like hitting cages for softball and baseball. I think it's really easy to lose track of how much storage a school and a gym needs. You know, we're looking at scores tables that are longer than what we typically have. And those are going to need places to be. On graduation and during certain ceremonies throughout the course of the year, we're going to need places to get things out of sight for seating or for the activity that's at hand, whatever that may be. There's a lot of use for that multi-purpose room. And just looking at the diagrams and looking at bringing those bleachers closer to the competitive surface, you're going to lose some space in that, and that's just something we need to consider. You know, and that multi-purpose room will get smaller.
Could June, could you go to the slide that showed that alternate for the multi-purpose room? So first of all, I guess I want to clarify that the multi-purpose room is not currently part of the DD budget presented tonight. It is still listed as a cost option. So it's not technically asking for approval at this point. But as you can see, it aligns with the east wall of the back of that east section of bleachers. So from the exterior, there's, you know, one facade line there. So like Mark just said, if you scoot the bleachers in closer, that would then shrink the width of that multi-purpose room along with it.
Yeah, but that multi-purpose room is really an odd, I mean, that's my concern with the way that is right now shown is that if you start putting storage in there, you're going to have to move out a ton of stuff to get to the things in the back. I don't know.
Yeah.
Unless it is used, I mean, if it's the size appropriate for batting cage or pitching or whatever, or golf practice or all of that, then the shape does make sense if that's really the use of it. So that's why I was asking what the programming for it was, because it seems like a crazy big expensive storage space. But if it's really if it's for other purposes, then it might make sense.
Well, I mean, I think, as Aaron said, it's at this point, it's not even part of the package tonight, but it sounds like it's an easier ask if we have them evaluate pulling that wall closer and the bleachers forward, and reconfiguring those doors is not quite as impactful as reprogramming the entire gym. Not that that's what we're suggesting, but I mean, the room is still kind of in development.
Yeah, I think if we move the bleacher section, it would definitely change the approach to that room. But that would have to be looked at alongside the bleachers if that room is still on the table. From a cost standpoint, I believe it's at $145 a square foot, which is it is a pretty bare bones room. There aren't really a whole lot of finishes or anything inside of it. So that's, you know, the structure, the skin, the roof, mechanical and all that.
Yeah, it's just like, for me, it's hard to imagine that that room is perfectly programmed and it just happened to fit exactly in that corner. You know, it looks like it's just a filler spot with it, and that's the size it is. And we may not have calculated or laid out yet exactly what we plan on putting in there and how much space is needed. Is that an accurate statement?
The ask was for 1,000 square feet. To get it to square up on the edge of the building, I think it ended up being a little over 1,100 square feet. And then had to add the corridor extension there too. So overall, the increased building square footage was 1,400 square feet.
Yeah.
So again, I don't want to get sidetracked with the bonus room. That's,
yeah.
You know, we're still evaluating. So I think if the thought or the motion is going to be on the gym to reevaluate that east bleacher section, it may take a little bit of time, but it's not like we'll walk away from tonight and won't come back until 50% CDs. It's something that we as a team would have to jump on right away and see what the options are and what the impact to the design process would be.
Okay.
Is there any?
So my understanding, if we do not vote for the everything right now tonight, then we're putting the whole entire project back on, like this whole entire schedule is delayed. And if that is the case, are you talking about it's delayed a day or 2 weeks or 2 years, or what's the timeline that we're delaying it?
So Kaya, this is Robin with DLR Group. We would need to evaluate that with the design team, but I mean, it's not a day and it's not a year. It's probably a week to 2 weeks because the people that we were going to move on to construction documents, now we need to stop and reevaluate this area. So it's probably 2 weeks that all in all, by the time we would come up with a design, get it approved, and then move on, it would just take that long. So
How much are we tracking ahead from our current baseline right now?
We are not ahead of schedule.
We're not ahead of
right
schedule.
on schedule.
No, with regards to the overall project, not the design, the overall project.
We are tracking with the overall project schedule right now, Drew.
Can I share my screen, June? I've done a little overlay on the gym. I just want to show everybody what's going on here.
Craig, will you also mention the pass-through we have from the existing gym to the new gym?
Oh, yeah.
And then the bottom exit also leads right to the concessions area too, by the restrooms. That makes it pretty close to the existing gym.
Yeah, there's a pass-through here. Is everybody seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Gymnasium. Okay, so you can see where the court was underneath this gray box. So here was the east end line or baseline. So there's 6 feet from the court to the painted baseline. When we had this was where the portable what do you call it, goal is. So that's the base for the portable goal. And as I threw a dimension on here, it's 4'6" from the wall to the back of that, which I don't think is enough room. I think we want more room for circulation there. So then there's it was 6 foot wider over here. 24 feet versus 18 feet to the court here. So if we move this 3 to 4 feet, if we pick up 3 feet here, we're going to be at 7'6", which is enough to get people, through there. And then we make this 3 foot shorter. So we've picked up that difference and we just split it in between the two. So then our goal on the east end moves out and we've got our 7.5, 8 foot clear to walk by here. There's not a lot of generous room once we use those portable goals.
So would it be possible to have drop down goals instead of portable goals?
It is, but the request was made for portables.
What was driving that request?
Yeah, I think just game experience for players coming into a unique gym, trying to create something that's a little more unique than our neighbors. That's kind of what drove it.
Yeah, my preference would be to have the facility be unique and not. I mean, the goals I think are a good idea, but I don't want to do it at the cost of the facility.
Do you believe this facility is unique?
I don't think it's as unique as our existing one.
It's not, and that's kind of what was pushing us. We wanted to, without going overboard and creating a Taj Mahal, we wanted to create a facility that is unique. And just my own opinion, if you take out these unique things like that, it's very similar to other gyms. It's just another gym. And we're competing against a gym right now that we have that this community thinks very highly of as being unique anyway.
Yeah, I think the uniqueness can come with if you have end bleachers that are closer to the court, because I don't know how many gyms have that. I was doing some searching and I don't see many gyms out there that I could find that have end bleachers at all, and none that I could see that had them set back. I love the idea of the end bleachers. I think that could create a very special type interface between the fans and the court, but it has to have some proximity.
We're at 8 foot now. I mean, I don't know, what did we shrink down to by shifting the court? We went from.
It goes to that the goals take up enough space to where it creates a challenge and it blocks the aisleway. If you're at a college game, you have people on the floor right around that. I mean, you have, like, if you're at a college game, you have photographers all the way up to that, almost past that base there. And I mean, people are right up there. And the fans are right behind him. I mean, it is super close. Am I incorrect there? I'm just going off my recollection of what I see on TV.
Well,
yeah, I mean, you're correct, but a lot of those are individual chairs that they put up right next to the court before they get to the bleachers.
Well, and they're providing access from above and not in front.
Right. There's some differences there. Here's what I'm getting at is I don't think we're going to solve it tonight, but I think there's been communicated if the motion has this in it and if it gets passed, then I think the team has an understanding of kind of what we're looking for as it relates to that end.
No, I just want to point out the extra room or trying to bring those closer is at odds with the portable goals. So we've got more than one problem to solve.
Right. But then it goes to, is having the fans closer in that experience with the court a higher priority than the goals? And I don't know that. I mean, there's going to have to be a group of people make that decision.
Hey, Drew, or Craig, I have a question. So right now, how it originally sat, I think that you could put a basketball goal there and still shoot a 3-point shot, still have a take down 3-point line where you could get extra shots in that area. But if we move the bleachers up and make that space tighter, does that eliminate that?
Yeah, I don't know. We have to look at that. You're talking about at the south end?
Yeah.
Well, let's see.
Well, one thought I'm having while I'm sitting here is if we don't like that for our students, why don't we put the other students over there and make it a disadvantage to them?
Right by our band.
Exactly.
So with the
Is that the distance to the goal, or is the goal that circle thing right there?
So I went from you need the overrun at the wall, and then so this is from the original court plus 6 feet to the 3-point line. Oops. And then if I move it over, so the end of that line, that box, then is where your 3-point line would be.
So the way I see that is you've got 2 full court practice areas and an additional scrimmage area where you can run through offense right there. And there is great value in that. But I want you guys to know, I understand all the concerns that the board is sharing, but that is a huge bonus right there. Where we're trying to practice an entire program at one time instead of the 5:30. This is big in eliminating that 5:30 a.m. practice, because there's going to be a curtain also in between the 2 full courts.
Yeah. So is it accurate to say that the floor-mounted goals create a constraint there during games as far as the design of that east end and the space, both on the east side and the west side, and are driving the location of the court, and then they create a challenge with regards to storing them for other events? Is that accurate?
Yes, yes, and if we get rid of the larger overruns that we have, even if we get rid of the portable goals, we get rid of the larger overruns, we're going to reduce capacity of the gymnasium. And capacity was one of the drivers that led us to this size and this shape.
Right, but right now my thought is like capacity, we're not getting that much extra capacity. We're less than 10% add for our existing gym. I mean, it's not like we're at 3,000 or even 2,500.
We're like 23.
Yeah, the existing one's 2,100. It's not even, I mean, we're barely 10% larger than the new one. And that's one of the perceptions is, hey, you're spending $10 million for a new gym, over $10 million for a new gym, and it's just 10% larger than the existing one. That some people are going to have trouble with that. That's why I'm like concerned that it has to be very well done.
Well, you're saying a 10% seating capacity, but you've got full court. We don't have correct me if I'm wrong, but our gym is not competition size right now.
You are absolutely correct. This has way more capability than the existing gym.
2 cross courts, and then I guess, so is there one goal at this east end that comes out of the east end? It's not, is that where it folds down?
That's one of the things we're looking at to, provide that.
Or we would move the portable goal. You just push it back and have some space.
Oh, I see, because you have drop downs on the side over there. Well, as someone that's taking a child to that 5 a.m. practice for 3 or 4 months, I know it wasn't the most enjoyable part of my life there for a while. I'm
So-
all for
The other, I mean, keep in mind, this is a 94-foot court. So it's, college size. Your existing gymnasium has an 84-foot court. So this is the preferred size for high school now.
Yeah. I want to make clear that I recognize that the court itself, although the seating is similar, the court itself is not even comparable. The capabilities of what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I think we need to consider the view angles or the sight lines that you have in your existing gym too. That was one of the things that we heard in the bond planning, that everybody you couldn't see the whole court if you're in the upper bleachers. So I think we've helped that situation a lot here.
Yeah.
Drew and the rest of the board, I want you to be able to visualize this. We are likely to put our student section on the north side, the second section in from the east. So whoever's running the cursor, maybe you could run it right there is where we would put the student section. This end cap on the east would serve as a great place during volleyball season to watch volleyball matches and graduation, Veterans Day programs, you name it. There's going to be a lot of good space there, but I see our student section kind of being in a congruent place is where they are now, which would be that section I just explained.
Well, that's a great point. How far back are you? Where's the volleyball lines?
Well, we're going to have, you'd have to look really closely, but
yeah,
one of the sides that are going to be rolled up when we do that, unless we're doing a single where it's just us and another team will play on the main court. But there's going to be seating on one half of the gym, which I would think is our home side, and the end cap. Would you agree with me, Mitch, on that? I think he's here.
Yeah, Mark, that's the intent for the volleyball layout. Is the one side of rows will be, one side of these will be pushed back, and they'll be offset for cross court volleyball.
Right.
That's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is there, I mean, we've kind of beat the gym part to death. I mean, I want to make sure we don't have any other questions out there. We fully answered questions on this and kind of where we.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
And then this is actually sort of for Craig too. So you have shifted it over how many feet?
This what I've drawn is moving it over 3 feet. So it makes the distance from on the east side and the west side the same, and you get 7'6" to walk behind the portable goal, base of the portable goal.
I like that shift. The only thing I'd like the board to know is, I mean, we spent a lot of time and gathered a lot of information on this gym, and I would hate for us to put this off. I mean, I know maybe it's not perfect in your eyes, but I mean, I don't know where else you're going to put the concession stand. DLR met our bleacher request of 2,300. Mark Farrar has already addressed the fact that we are trying to make this just a good game experience. We think that's important. I've had a lot of people in the community, tell me that they don't want it just to be another gym. They want it to be something that has character and is special. And I think that's what we tried to incorporate into this whole picture. And I mean, I've listened to a lot of the conversations, and I do like shifting the gym over the floor just a little bit. And I think what Mr. Farrar has added has been spot on as far as the usage.
Hey guys, this is Justin. So on the east end in question, there's the bleachers are shorter on the sides to accommodate the doors. Does it solve the problem if we, rather than those shorter sections of bleachers on the east end, that you do a little shorter section of bleachers on the north and the south and put the doors instead of the doors going north and south, the doors would go east and west? Does that give a perception that that east end is closer to the court if you don't have the section set back? I don't know if I'm making sense or not.
Yeah, I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. So that would be the bleachers over here.
Yeah.
And then you would block out here and here.
And then put the doors right there going east rather than
Right.
south and north.
Right, coming out. The doors would exit this direction and this direction.
And to me, the part of what makes that east end feel so separated is the sides where they're backed because of the doors.
I think that's a great comment. I think, it shifts a little bit of the seating. And we could look at how many seats that block out would lose. But
Yeah,
I agree that
but then your
setback-
sides, your wings on the end can get longer because right now they're cut back.
Right. Overall, it should equal out.
The only
I think
issue
overall, you're
here,
talking about the same thing.
the one issue we'll have is this row would be too long to not be served by another stair. So we'd probably have to introduce another aisle. Right, there'd be an aisle here, and then the others would have to shift over accordingly. So we're basically picking up another aisle. We'd have to run that by our bleacher consultant, but that's my only concern in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's some options here to where we can address everything and make it all work and maybe even reduce the overall square footage.
Well, it's about 9 o'clock. Is there any other questions? I think most all my questions were addressed. The only thing that maybe since Mr. Farrar and Feldkamp are on here that I text the group. I know the new building doesn't have any lockers and I'm not really a fan of them because my kids never used them. But I guess the question to me is, is it absolutely no lockers anywhere, or what are we doing for kids, particularly like freshmen that don't have a car and things like that?
Right.
How do we communicate that out?
Yeah, I don't foresee that as being an issue. We just, administrators just cleaned out lockers the other day, and guess what we found? Nothing.
No.
We found very little. I think it'll be a quick adjustment period. So we expected to find a lot in the West Campus and found very little. So.
That was be kind of my perception, but I don't know what the overall view of that is. But well, I think we've got through the presentation. Know we've got some questions and concerns, but
I'm ready to make a motion.
I think we're going to have to move on to some kind of a vote.
I'm ready. I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we approve the design development submittal contingent upon revisiting the east wing of the gymnasium. Is there anything else, other wording that we need to include in that?
It's your motion.
I think that would be the extent of my motion.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I would second that motion, Jim.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we accept the design plan contingent upon a review of the east end of the gym. Is there any other discussion?
Does that delay anything?
I mean, if you're talking about moving the wall, I'm sure it does. If you're talking about just moving the location of the bleachers, I
Yes.
don't know what the impact is. I assume it all impacts it some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now, looking back at Eske's last update for substantial completion dates, everything was tracking about 21 based upon the different options. West Fitness and Wellness was a month ahead, or a month, 5 weeks. So I that's what I'm seeing, unless those dates are not correct, or there's been some updates since then and I'm missing something.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move on to a vote. Drew?
Aye.
Justin?
Aye.
Kaya?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
I'll vote for the motion as well. Motion carried unanimously. I know that causes a little bit of delay in the project, but I think we'll be better off. I mean, I really appreciate the team's presentation tonight. I think the public and the board in general is very impressed with the project. And I guess I'll commit everyone else to being available at the earliest convenience to whatever we have to do to review the gym to keep things moving along. With that,
Yeah.
go ahead, Aaron, please.
Oh, I was just going to add that, you know, the project team will regroup tomorrow and discuss the time frame for sharing some additional information on that.
All right. Again, thank you everyone for your time. We'll move the meeting to be adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.